we're just waiting to get our grids, and we will then introduce our drivers. The historic series is for these Sports 2000s built between the 1979 and 1990 period. So in the A-Class are the newest of that group, so that's those Lolas, Tigers, driven and constructed from 1987 to 1990 on this particular division. And then we have the historic B category, and those are for the mid-80s that they were produced. And we have two who came for the weekend in a Shrike and a Tiger. And then in the largest section of the field, the historic C, are those built between 1979 and 1982. And we have a Royale, we have Tigers and 3 Lolas in the build field that should be taking the grid. Although it does look like we have a far fewer amount of cars who have actually assembled on the Melbourne Loop so far. I don't know if they're actually going to be brought in as the weather continues to sort of ebb and flow through today, and the wind is different depending on which of the 6 flags we have in a line down the start-finish line that we are using to use as a reference point. They predominantly northerly winds coming directly across the circuit, but they have gone to a slight angle as well, and it looks like the wind has actually dropped slightly from yesterday, where the flags were sort of pinned right back, but plenty of moisture in the air, and we are hoping that the drivers will have made a decision that they can at least race with and try and move themselves forward. It's a difficult, very, very difficult conditions for them, but it does look at the moment like the track is predominantly dry.
It does indeed. I managed to get myself tangled in my headphone wire then, unfortunately around my bad leg as well, which takes a moment for me to get out of that. We think we've sorted the walkie-talkie side of things. We've changed channels, and hopefully we won't get somebody else attempting to communicate with us intermittently. As you say, the conditions are going to be the big story here, because already on the pitch straight, there is no standing water, and there was a moment where we were getting the beading. There was no puddles, there was no sort of big bodies, if you like. We were just getting a little bit of beading on the surface, which of course is when you begin to have that greasy feeling. However, that is immediately settled back down into the asphalt, and will begin to produce that optimum grip again. We saw earlier on, we lost about 10 seconds a lap in lap time. We're expecting to be maybe 4 or 5 seconds off of qualifying times in this one. And speaking of qualifying, this is how they're set up for the grid. Charlie Hyatt in the 10 car will be on pole ahead of David Williams in the 92. Behind them, you'll find the 48 of Paul Street and the 33 of Mike Fry, with the 14 of Charlie Beasley going from 5th, alongside Clive Steeper's number 17 car. 7th is the 79 of Andreas Floth. 8th is the 2 of David Muse, a good starting position for him. 9th, you'll find Nick Bailey in the 12, alongside 10th place competitor Richard Cook in the 16 car. Your back 2 rows of the grid are formed by Patrick Egan's 90 and Chris Snowden's 32, with the grid finally completed by Nick Johnson's 62 and Ross Hyatt's 70. Keep an eye out for Nick Johnson. He was on the screen just for a moment there at the back of the pack in that red car. We're expecting him to make a charge through. He was actually your pole sitter in the first race, but then had a mechanical and didn't get any further in that one. So he is going to be charging through. He should make short work of getting into the top 10. The question is, top 5 any further? Then it begins to get really quite difficult.
Absolutely. We're watching out then for that number 62, Nick Johnson, to see how he can move forward. Historic C's, obviously the oldest of the cars in the grid. So filing through then and getting their first taste of what the conditions actually feel like right now. Whether that will still be the case in 18 minutes time is will remain to be seen. But then we will just try and get hold of our grip and get everybody up and ready to race. Hopefully they'll be there very soon as they come through the McLean's corner. Number 62 at the tail of the field, testing out the grip, and they go through and continue through on their second green lap then. So great diversity of machinery out there. Fabulous cars to look at, with these super long tails as well. So almost all the field then through and down the start-finish straight, as they look like they're going to be underway. I don't know if you've got any fresh information there, Tom.
No, well, sort of, if you like. We're still expecting for the standing start, I'd anticipate. However, we'll have to wait and see on that front, since the behaviour is a little bit odd. This is definitely another green flag lag here. We got a little bit of weaving going on. A number of drivers are out there on wets. A somewhat equal number are out there on slicks, is the story that's come from the wonderful Alan, the championship coordinator over on the Sports 2000 side. So there is going to be some drivers who are potentially looking to carve through, and others who we would anticipate to drop back. As for who that is, well, wets off the start, they'll heat up more. The first few corners will be far easier. You know you've got the confidence there. However, I think beyond about lap 2, potentially, slicks to me look like the right tyre to be on. It will be difficult to drive on them. If you touch a curb or a painted line, you'll be off the road. But if you can keep it on the black stuff, the slick tyre has to be the way to go. Yeah,
it does look so. In fact, we've got glorious bright sunshine and sharp shadows on the track right now as well. Long may that continue for the races, except for, of course, for those who won't be wishing for it if they've got the wet tyres on. But a big mix, as you would expect, in those tyre decisions. And coming down then to take the standing start is our pole sitter coming through then the Robert chicane then under the yellow flags as they prepare to grid up.
Just on the weather quickly as well, the one encouraging sign is that all the time the weather has been coming from the Melbourne loop and beyond, if you like. It's that sort of direction. There is finally not quite blue sky over there, but very, very high cloud, as opposed to those horrible rain clouds that sit much lower. So there's a chance now that not necessarily till the end of the day, but for a short period, we can anticipate it to stay dry. And I think that's all the more reason to stay on slick tyres here.
Absolutely, yeah. I wonder, whether the drivers with these covered wheels will suffer any particular difference in the amount of grip with the water. If the water spray does become a factor, there's fewer channels for the rain to go, as it were. So the rearmost car has filed into the grid, and we're almost underway.
We are indeed. We shall await the green flag, which is majestically waved by the marshal at the back. The 5-second board is shown, but don't worry, it's Motorsport 5 seconds. Will be underway in just a moment. Red lights are ablaze. We wait, we race here at Donington Park. Good start from Charlie Hyatt off the pole initially, but then on the gear change, he actually gets to touch a wheel spin, and he's on the inside. He's in contention, but he is not the lead car by the time they reach Redgate. He'll have to throw it in on the brakes, which is exactly what he does. Charlie Hyatt, not quite executing the plan, but he will lead after turn number 1.
Tremendous commitment under the brakes, but of course, going on the inside, you do have that little bit more amount of wiggle room to make a mistake and stay on the circuit. And if you're on the outside, you are having to just really take your time to plot your route. But there's a little bit of side-by-side, then down the crane of curves as the 14 launches a very, very late braking manoeuvre and slightly parks the 79 on the outside. 70 gets through.
That was Charlie Beasley in the 14. He does like a late lunge, this Charlie, and he's showing that even when the track is a bit damp and greasy, he'll still commit to that overtake. Your top 3 then are Charlie Hyatt, David Williams and Paul Street in that order. Already a gap forming back to Mike Fry in 4th position, who heads pretty much the rest of the field. That said, Paul Street in 3rd he was initially quite far back off the line from David Williams. He's now beginning to claw himself back towards 2nd position within this opening lap.
Yeah, and the rear cars at the back of the grid just feeling their way a little bit, but we've got a bit of a midfield battle going on as they head towards the chicane at the end of the lap. But the leaders are through already, and that was a slightly wild moment from Charlie Hyatt, who's obviously pushing very hard on the exit of the corner.
Chris Snowden's in this battle. He sits 5th at the moment, just behind that Mike Fry train. He's been making a lot of progress because he started 12th, 7 points up. Here comes Paul Street for 2nd place at Redgate. The white car on the outside manages to set up the cutback. It was a little bit later than he would have liked, and as such couldn't stay on the power to get it. Had to lift off, and he'll settle in behind David Williams as the top number 1 escapes. 2nd and 3rd, they are still very much locked in combat.
They are, and I don't think that this is done by any stretch of the imagination, and it's certainly down in the midfield as well. They further battle the 32, very much on the defensive there from the bright red car of Beasley, the 14, who is trying to make that overtake. Snowden moved ahead of Beasley, and that's not done and dusted, that battle.
No, Snowden was ahead of Beasley when they came across the line. I think Charlie Beasley sent his second move of the race down the inside on the brakes when they reached Redgate Corner, so was able to regain that position. It's still Mike Fry fourth, Charlie Beasley fifth, and Chris Snowden in sixth in that case.
Snowden, one of the ones who clearly got the tyre gamble correct. He's gone up 7 places. Johnson has gone up 6, and Ross Hyatt has gone up 6 places as well, up to that 8th position at the moment. So clearly they've selected the correct tyres.
Here they come to complete yet another lap. I wonder if Mike Fry is on wet here, because as he's heating up the car, it initially looked very, very racy off the start. We saw him consider the inside into turn 1, but now on lap number 3, the car is twitching around underneath him as if the tyres are just beginning to turn into jelly.
And he's causing a bit of a traffic jam as well as they go through Redgate. He's on the outside, and he's overtaken quickly then by Beasley, I think, in the red machine, as the second and third position drivers continue on their hard battle.
Here comes Mike Fry. He's got a huge train of cars all behind him. We are live, I believe, across on the YouTube now, which is good to see. So across on YouTube, we've managed to sort out, that's almost all of our technical issues now as a result of the power outage resolve. So hello to everybody listening along on the YouTube. It's fantastic to have you here. This is the Sports 2000 Championship, and you're looking at Mike Fry in the 33. He was at the head of this little battle,
but he's got it wrong.
Charlie Beasley's thrown him, and now Chris
on the brakes
through.
Round to the outside, and gives up 2 positions. Just a small, tiny mistake there under the braking.
Mike Fry then losing spots. I suspect he'll be on the wet tyre as well, because there is a very obvious dry line beginning to emerge. You can spot the difference in the colour of the asphalt. It's dark, 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 light where the cars have been, dark, dark, dark once more. Here they come then, down towards the braking zone. Snowden in the 32, the 14 is Beasley. Snowden not able to gain any time on the brakes. I think he actually lost a bit there. What are the lap times like? Well, Charlie Hyatt, he's your race leader. He's still at the front, 1:99 last time through, and able to keep pace. He must be on a slick tyre.
And Street got ahead of David Williams as well. So moving forward, only circulating on a 121 kind of area, and Charlie Hyatt is just miles ahead in terms of pace on the circuit, and he's got a 3.8 second lead.
David Williams is losing 1.9 seconds a lap relative to his best, which was very early on, so he's going to come under a lot of pressure. Mike Fry in the background of the shot you've got here, the green bonnet, he's coming under increasing pressure as well, because that, attacking all the time, is going to be Clive Steeper in the 17 car. Clive Steeper with that wonderful yellow streak down the side, attacking the 33. This is the battle just ahead of them. Snowden still has the advantage here at McLean's corner, which looks banked in from this camera shot, but it's all the time trying to throw you towards the outside, really, as the rear wants to let go.
Yeah, it's just the trickery of the camera, but what you do get here is terrific elevation. Not a single corner really is flat, or a particular set of the straight. Even the back exhibition straight has lumps and bumps in it as it crests and falls over and over, and down we go then towards the very end of the lap, the Robert chicane.
Snowden still has the advantage now over the number 70. That's Ross Hyatt, who started at the back of the grid. So Ross Hyatt making a lot of progress forwards. Keep an eye on this number 2 car just for a moment. That yellow Shrike, absolutely brilliant to look at. Yellow with flames. It's a championship favourite.
As he follows another very, very nice looking number 12 car there of Nick Bailey in the Gulf liveried Royale.
Ross Hyatt and Clive Steeper side by side. It'll be Clive Steeper in the yellow 17. He's got the inside for Hollywood, the inside for the first bit of the Craners, and he swoops to take the apex at the second section. He'll have his eyes set on Chris Snowden up ahead now. Clive Steeper making good progress in this one so far. Not quite as astronomical as the likes of Ross Hyatt from the back, but just slowly picking up car by car, place by place. And
Fry continues to sort of drop down the order, presumably on those incorrect choice of tyres, presumably on the wets, and we have had a retirement. That was Cook at the end of his lap 4, so he's come on into the pits.
This is Mike Fry on camera actually here. We'll stay with this shot for a second, then we curl around, and the 33 looks increasingly vulnerable. Now the pressure is coming from the 79 car of Andreas Floth. These might be your wet runners who are dropping away. Andreas Floth tucked into the slipstream. He's getting closer. Clive Steeper is close enough. He's up the inside. These two have been going at it for a few laps now. Snowden passed by Steeper once more. He'll have to try an attack on another lap.
We haven't seen it on camera, but there's been a change for the lead. Charlie Hyatt, with that huge gap that he had initially, is now 2.4 seconds away. I think he must have gone off track because Street is back through and into the lead.
Good from Paul Street, started third overall. Doesn't hit the front of the field very often, if we're being honest, but he's given it a good attempt. This still is that fantastic number 2 Shrike, trying to get himself up the inside. Josh, and he's still unable to find a gap. It's astonishing.
Yeah, David Muse there, trying his level best to get through. And the Shrike is clearly performing very well. That is the number 16 of Cook. Now, I was reading him as visited the pits, so it wasn't a full-on retirement, but he's clearly stopped in the pits and come back out again. Now, that won't be for a tyre change. That was far too quick.
Number 2 car has dealt with Mike Fry, but dropped back from that battle it was in, so it must have been a mistake earlier on in the lap. David Muse will want to try and make progress. Here's Mike Fry at the front of your wet tyre squabble, if you like, but there'll be pressure coming down the inside this time from Andreas Floth. Floth was there or thereabouts. Was he able to keep his nose on the inside? The answer, I think, was yes. A good pass from Andreas Floth.
It was indeed. Very good. And I noticed several of the cars do have tail lights on and several don't. So there's a little bit of a difference in configuration on the back of those cars. So far, nice dry running for this race with 9 minutes to go.
The number 90 car now making quick work of Mike Fry as well. That was Patrick Egan moving up one position further. Next in his sights will be Andreas Floth. The two of them often relatively evenly matched as Mike Fry continues to drop down the order from what was actually quite a good grid spot in 4th.
And here comes then Nick Bailey in that baby blue Royale with the orange Gulf stripes to try and get Fry as well, who's tripped down from the potential podium. Is down now into 12th place and may lose further positions, but at the head of the field, Street still leads, now from 6.5 seconds from Charlie Hyatt. So whatever went wrong for Hyatt on that previous lap has gotten a lot worse.
Maybe he's fried his tyres here as well. Was he potentially in the wets and conserving them early on? Charlie often has a big margin over the field, so it's not impossible to believe. We'll have to keep an eye out for when he comes across the line and spot if there's any damage. The car itself actually looks okay, it sounds okay, could just be car selection, tyre selection issue.
Could be again, yes indeed. So the gap to Street is now 10.8 seconds and David Williams is reeling in Charlie Hyatt and is now down to 4.2 seconds that time.
David Muse on to gain a couple of positions this lap. We can see him on the screen. He's ahead of the 32 for Chris Snowden. Interesting that Snowden was initially making progress forward and now finds himself dropping back down the order as well as David Muse is turning to try and make an advance. The 48 car on screen, that is your race leader, Paul Street. Started from 3rd place on the grid, is now making very good progress as he extends the gap behind to Charlie Hyatt, and in turn, David Williams is 2 seconds a lap quicker than Charlie Hyatt as well.
Yeah, Charlie Hyatt is clearly really not having a good time out there right now, but it looks like David Williams might be able to try and get that 2nd position.
He'll be pushing for it very, very soon, you anticipate, because David Williams not one to hang about. He'll often try a little bit of a move around the outside. If that's not on, he'll try the inside. The pair of them descend upon the Robert chicane now, and weaving to try and get onto the damp part of the road was Charlie Hyatt. I think that is the last little symptom, if you like, of somebody who's overcooked a set of wet tyres. He's on the start-finish straight. The silver car is Charlie Hyatt. The green car is David Williams, and it's the green car that is much, much quicker at this stage.
And it's it's a terrible feeling, isn't it? On the wrong tyres and just begging for that stopwatch to tick forward and the race end to come as soon as possible. There's no possibility of changing tyres here. It's a very short race.
This battle is maybe a bit of an exhibition, if you like, this pursuit of 2nd place for David Williams, because you don't feel like there's much Charlie's going to be able to do when David arrives. Continues its way down the Craner curves. Now they'll approach the remains of Starkey's Bridge. Next up is Schwant's curve. Get yourself sorted out through that one because it's all about making sure you're on the right line to break for McLean's, which is where they are now. Charlie Hyatt wide of apex. David Williams absolutely on it on the inside. A brilliant line from the 92. Yeah. He's very brave as well because that curve will still be damp, but he didn't care. He was still using the inside out to hook himself around McLean's.
Yeah, full commitment here. Smelling blood in the water, I think, potentially, as a shark pursues its prey. I think it's going to be very, very easy and quick work here as David Williams reels in Hyatt with just under 6 minutes to go and throwing the car into the Robert chicane.
David Williams actually kicking up the dirt on exit as well. His car has a slightly shorter wheelbase than some of those in this series, and the knock-on is that it's a bit less stable in the quick corners, but when he's trying to get it round a slow corner, as we can see, he really chucks it in towards the apex and then deals with it when he gets there. It's almost, and maybe this is a bit too much of a compliment, it's almost Michael Schumacher-esque in the way that he's going to make the front get there and then deal with the problems that the rear creates afterwards.
Yeah, totally. As Hyatt's pace improved that lap by about half a second, so the rate of catching has reduced somewhat. David Williams will be looking to see now where he feels more, where he feels Hyatt is feeling a little bit less confident under the brakes, potentially around the corners and. Right round the outside of the corner this time, where it was David Williams.
I honestly can't tell if David Williams is on slicks that are a little bit too cold, or if he's just ragging it around with a set of knackered wets on there and hoping for the best. No. Slow car down the start-finish straight. A lot of smoke on that one as well, so keep your eye on it. It's going to be pinned to the inside. That might be Ross Hyatt, actually.
Yeah.
Whoa, and around he goes. That's the 48. That's Paul Street.
That's Paul Street.
That's the race leader.
Who is, there's quite a number of white liveries out there. So as they pass our camera position, it's difficult to tell. But he discovered just how wet that grass is, I think, at the infield of the Redgate corner.
Yeah, had a huge amount of smoke actually, so blew up down the start-finish straight, tried to get it round, and then as he pulled off onto the grass, because he knew that he wasn't going to make it to the finish, as you say, he discovered just how slippery the grass is, and he's done a couple of pirouettes.
He was trying for a controlled stop, but it didn't quite work out, I think.
No, not in the slightest. This picture on screen is actually Ross Hyatt, so he's still making progress and confirms that he's still in the race. Ross up to 9th position now. He's formerly been a bit higher than that, actually, but he seems to have found his middle point in the race.
Is it possible that Charlie Hyatt could actually still win this race? We have 3.5 minutes to run. David Williams hasn't yet overtaken him. And here we have then Charlie Hyatt, who rather fortuitously finds himself back in the lead.
The gap was massive for Paul Street as well, 21.5 seconds.
Yep.
Such a shame for him. Here comes Charlie Hyatt on the brakes in the silver number 10 car with that wonderful blue cockpit structure. And he's now pulling away from David Williams, I think. David Williams doesn't have the advantage. He's not got the tyres underneath him anymore. What's this lap? Charlie Hyatt takes the lead. It was a 21.4 behind him, 22.0 for David Williams, whose charge has been halted.
Yeah, very, very confusing to see the pace increase and decrease as it has done so far for both of our front runners now.
Down the hill drops Charlie Hyatt then. He's at the Carina curves. He'll get himself across to that left-hand side of the road and actually using all the road there, which you'll see some drivers are not quite able to do. A perfect example being David Williams, who can't hold the car back across on exit from the final part of the Carina curves as it swoops across to the left, but is pointed to the right and really wants you to drop off onto the grass there. Then you'll be flat all the way up until McLean's corner. Charlie Hyatt's car just a little bit sideways there, using the drift to control itself in towards the apex. Here's the battle further down the order. It's at Redgate right now. Ross Hyatt ahead of Bailey, and then in turn it's Egan now as Street continues to fall all the way down to what will eventually be last place.
Yeah, we actually had some personal best times there. Steeper has unlocked a bit of pace, a 1:18.565, faster than the best lap of Charlie Hyatt earlier on at the start of our race. And Snowden also picking up the pace and in that 7th position. So it's Hyatt and Williams from Steeper, Johnson, Muse, Besley, Snowden, Ross Hyatt, Floth and Bailey, your top 10 with a minute and a half to go.
In towards turn 1 they come then. A minute and a half. They should get 2 more laps out of this one as they wind their way through the first sector of Donington Park's national layout, of course. David Muse still holding on to what is another good finish for him in 4th position. Found his way through on Johnson 1 lap ago and will attempt to try and continue that progress. Interesting that Nick Johnson was getting quicker and quicker from the back row of the circuit. We qualified on pole yesterday. We thought he has the pace. And then David Muse has come through and nabbed another position. Yeah. He's having a great weekend.
Muse really is, yeah. And in that blue Shrike, wasn't it? Yes, the Shrike of Muse, performing very well in these conditions.
Up the hill towards Coppice they come then. David Williams, he's holding that apex, and then it's just when he begins to pick up the power, the rear seems to want to let go, and he's quite happy to let it do that and slide, but of course that means that your hot tyres get even hotter, which makes you lose even more grip, which means you slide more and the tyres get hotter, and it's this awful cycle. As up to the line comes Charlie Hyatt. Will we have the checkered flag out? The answer, no. He's going to get 1 more lap in this one.
Crossing the line with 18 seconds to go on the race, so we will have a final lap for us to enjoy, as Charlie Hyatt then completely off the pace in the middle part of this race, and now suddenly has managed to pick it back up again. David Williams was quicker that previous lap by about half a second, but he's going to have to be a lot quicker than that to actually try and vie for this win come the end of the lap.
Indeed, the gap is up over 3.5 seconds currently. Still, the battle develops slightly further down between the 32 of Chris Snowdon and the 14 of Charlie Beasley. Charlie attempting to find a way through. He's been attempting this for pretty much the whole race, and at various points he has succeeded, but somehow Chris Snowdon always finds a way to retaliate, always manages to bite straight back. Beasley puts one in on the brakes for the 3rd or 4th time this race. This time not close enough, has to back out and reveal the position back to Charlie Bailey up ahead.
Well, just coming out then of the of Coppice is our leaders, as down the back straight we go. We are almost to a conclusion here for the Sports 2000 Championship in the historic category. Coming out of the final corner then, tail getting a little bit twitchy, but it's Charlie Hyatt who completes the win as he weaves across the start finish line.
Great effort from Charlie Hyatt. There was a point there where it looked as if the win was going to be impossible, but still he pulls it out of the bag. Second across the line is David Williams, I believe, although has he been passed by Clive Steeper on that last lap? Clive Steeper may have just found a way up into 2nd place. I think that's brilliant from Clive Steeper. We'll await confirmation from the timing, but Clive Steeper with an absolutely magnificent effort, all hidden away, all done quietly, and his last lap was much, much faster than that of David Williams to take a brilliant 2nd place. Chris Snowdon is setting himself up to just about hold off Mr. Beasley behind, and up to the line they come, and it will in fact be Chris Snowdon ahead of Charlie Beasley by the time they reach the line. The last few cars will take the checkered flag, and then we'll get an order confirmed for you. Andy's already scampering his way down towards pit lane to try and gather some drivers up. This car on screen, and just approaching the chicane now, is Ross Hyatt. He found himself within the top 5 at one stage, did Ross, from the back of the grid, and then he's fallen all the way back towards the final finisher position. To apologise, that was actually that was that was Patrick Egan we had on screen there. This is Ross Hyatt, who is towards the back of the grid in the number 70, and he's actually got the leader behind him on his cooldown lap, which is not what he would have wanted to see. Your order then confirms as follows. Charlie Hyatt finishes ahead of a brilliant Clive Steeper in 2nd place, with David Williams dropping a position on the last lap to 3rd. David Muse finishes 4th ahead of Nick Johnson in 5th, before you'll find Chris Snowdon's 32 car in 6th. Charlie Beasley found himself 7th overall ahead of Nick Bailey in 8th and Andreas Floth 9th. Then it's Patrick Egan in 10th before you found Mike Fry, who dropped all the way down the order in the early stages. Ross Hyatt was your final finisher in 12th, without Cook or Street making their way to the checkered flag. With that, we can see drivers getting out the car. They're racing to get their helmets off so they can be the first to talk to Andy Webster.
Yes, thank you very much there, Tom. We're just waiting for Charlie to get ready to have a quick chat with us. But Charlie, what went down in that race? Because it looked like you had the win sort of almost sewn up. Then Paul Street went went flying past you, and then you get it in the end. So an absolute roller coaster.
Yeah, it was a bit of a gamble at the start on the tyres as we were going out to assembly area. The rain was coming down quite a lot, and then we were sat there and I was like, oh no, it'll be the opposite to yesterday. But no, it came with quite a dry line on the 2 green flag laps, and I knew Paul was going to be on slicks, and it was just a matter of kind of gapping him at the start, and as the track evolved and it got drier, I knew that he'd be coming. It's a shame, obviously, that he didn't finish. I'm sorry for him because deserved a victory, obviously, taking the gamble, and it would have paid off, but yeah.
So, but you'll take it, I'm sure, because everyone gets mechanicals from time to time. So it's a reality of motor racing, this. But you went for the wets to start with, but obviously in 2 minds.
Yeah, like I said, it was a massive gamble, and we chose with the wets. At the time, we thought it was the right decision, and to be honest, for the first 3 laps, it probably was. But the track here, since they've relayed it, it's really grippy, and credit to the organisers and everything for getting everything done today due to the power outage. So yeah, thank you to them for getting us a full race.
Oh, congratulations! Hopefully, more success to come, but a great race.
Thank you.
So what we'll do is we'll try and then speak to Clive Steeper. Clive, how did that final lap go down for you? That was a nabbing it right at the death there.
Yeah, no, I just kept pushing because I made the decision to go out on slick, so I lost a lot of gaps on the first few laps and then put the hammer down, as Hamilton would say, and just tried to push. So a bit disappointed the clerk of the course didn't give me another lap because I think I might have had Charlie then.
Well, I'm sure you'll put your complaints in. But yeah, a great race, and I'm sure that you're just feeling like it came good right at the very end.
Yeah, I mean, it was a big gamble. Yesterday I wanted to do it and I just didn't have the courage to do it. So today I said I will, and it's paid off, so I'm really happy. Yeah, excellent.
Fantastic, congratulations. Second place then for Clive Steeper, and I'm hoping to try and interrupt then the congratulations going on between the podium sitters. But David Williams, beautiful car, but I'm assuming, was this a tyre selection issue today?
Personally, I think we went with the right tyre. I mean, results maybe don't show that, but I wouldn't have been happy about there on slicks. The car was handling like a boat at the end. I think we destroyed the tyres yesterday on the wets, but and I had to let Clive through, obviously, because he lent me an ignition switch yesterday, so I'm very grateful. That's why I let him through, honest.
Of course, yeah, yes, absolutely, no doubt. But overall, was that a difficult race for you, or were you keeping it fairly controlled? It looked like you were having a bit of fun out there.
Yeah, I mean, the car is sort of sliding around. I was keeping an eye, obviously, on who was it? Well, everyone that was in front, to be honest. Just trying to sort of keep it as neat and tidy as possible. We had a major panic before we went out. We were last to the assembly area with the electrical problem, which we managed to resolve with Andy as ever. But yeah, so good to be out there. Good to sort of finish in the top 3. There's more in the car when everything goes right, but it's all about finishing, isn't it?
It is all about finishing. Well, congratulations for another podium today.
Thanks very much.